Good Sunday morning to you guys out there, and this beautiful day actually here in Michigan. Doing a quick live here. I wanted to talk a little bit about strumming patterns and something that most people struggle with in the beginning, which is also chord transition. So if you're struggling with chord transition and you're struggling with strumming patterns, stick around because we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But before we do, again, getting acquainted with this YouTube live thing here. So again, thanks for tuning in. And something new that I found out this week called Google Hangouts, something I wasn't familiar with, but now I am. I'm going to be doing Google Hangouts every once in a while with somebody that is on YouTube. Good morning, Paul. So what'll be cool about that is we'll get a little bit of insight as to other guitar players out there on YouTube and what they're teaching and tips and tricks that may help you as well. So stay tuned for the future of Google Hangouts and interviews, if you will, on YouTube. So without further ado, let's get into chord transition. Maybe you've got your cup of coffee. I've got mine. If you can see this here, this is one of the cups I'm selling online. Kumbaya, huh? Hope it will be summer pretty soon, so I'm looking forward to that. Campfires and whatnot. All right, so a lot of times people have trouble with chord transition. And I always tell people, before you even think about strumming the chord, the better bet is to make the chord shape, right? Let's say, for instance, you're playing a G, and you want to go from a G to a C, without even strumming the chord. Because remember, every time you add something, it adds a little bit more difficulty, okay? So going from G to C. And once you feel pretty strong about that, then add the strum. Again, this is if you're having trouble with chord transition. That wasn't a C, now it is. G, C. What am I doing there? Actually, what I was going to show you too is there's some songs that will use chords and they will add another bass note to it. So instead of, let's say you're playing a C, you can use the G for the bass note. And all you would do is use your third finger on the third fret, right? And put the pinky behind it where your C actually is. It's just a little trick there to embellish the chord. But getting back to chord transition, good morning, guys. Good morning, Walter. Ciao. It seems to be Italian on there. I'm trying to make it out, but good morning to you guys. Now let's take another chord, for instance, without strumming the chord. Let's go from an A, right? An A chord. Let's do it like this. Sorry, it's really light here. A to a D. A to a D. And again, I'm not strumming the chord. I'm just making the shape. You want to get used to making the shape before you start strumming it if you're having trouble with that. Because a lot of times what happens is people will strum, they'll hit the chord, and then they'll search for the notes, and strumming just adds an extra thing to it, which can be difficult. So, and then once you get used to that, you create muscle memory. Muscle memory takes time to do. So when I'm teaching lessons and somebody says to me, how long does it take to learn guitar? It really depends how much time you spend doing it. It's like anything else. I've never heard of anybody practicing a lot and then getting worse. So the more you practice, the better you get. A lot of times if you're watching TV, there's a lot of time there that if you're watching TV, you pick up the guitar, you sit there, you watch TV, just practice strumming, going back and forth. And you'll get better at it quicker. The other thing I want to mention is when you're, pressing down on a fret, you want to get right behind that fret. A big mistake people make is they get behind the fret and it creates a buzzing sound, right? So let's say, for instance, I was going to play a G chord, but instead of playing it right behind the frets, I go a little bit too far back, right? I'm not going to get as good of a sound. So you want to stay right on the fret, okay? That's a really important thing to note when you're playing chords. So let's talk about some practice techniques that you can use to go back and forth in chord transition. So let's say, for instance, you're going from an E minor to an A. Now, I very well could do an E minor even this way with my first two fingers and then go to an A. So a lot of times, depending on the chords that I'm playing for a song, will determine the fingering that I actually use. So if I go from an E minor, again, to an A, I'm using my first two fingers here, right? And I just move those two over one and then add my third finger or my ring finger. You know, it's subtle things like that that will help out your guitar playing overall. And then what happens is you just do it. You're on autopilot. And it really makes your playing, like I said, a lot easier. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Robbie, good morning. Hope everybody's having a good morning. It's Sunday. Last week was St. Patty's Day. Hopefully some of you guys saw some of the tunes at St. Patty's that I gave as lessons. And just so you guys know, I've kind of neglected the website quite a bit, but I'm going to start adding more and more to it. So when you go to onestarguitarlessons.com, you're going to start seeing a little bit more information, whether it's going to be ukulele songs, guitar songs with lyrics. The problem I ran into with website stuff is I'm not probably the best techie, and I found out that working with a lot of different people work different ways doing web design. So I was always kind of disappointed, and a lot of stuff never got finished up. So be sure to stop by the website when you get a chance. So again, going back to chord transition, we said E minor to A is a good one to practice. You could also do G to C. And there's really minimal movement there. What I'm focusing on is my second finger and third finger, right? And then move it over. So again, it's good to realize the chords that you can use to make these easy changes. Okay, which leads us right into the strumming pattern. So there's tons of different types of strumming patterns out there. Don't get lost in strumming patterns. The big thing I want to tell you about strumming is to keep your hand constantly moving. So you've got your pick, and I want to mention this too. Sometimes, if you can see this here, if you're holding the pick and it's too far out like this, you're going to lose it in the guitar hole. It happens. You don't have enough strength to hold on to it. You want to keep the pick close. Remember, less is more. It looks like it's coming out the side of my thumb. Less is more. Remember that. All right. So getting into strumming patterns, I'm going to show you 5 strumming patterns, and they're just going to be typical, simple strumming patterns that you can use today. So regardless of the song that you're listening to or practicing to, you want to try out any one of these practice strumming patterns to get good at it. It may not be the exact one for that song, but I guarantee you, though, once you learn some of these patterns, you will get really good at playing strumming patterns. So one of the things to note, besides holding the pick, is to make sure that this hand is constantly doing an up-down. Okay? Even if you're not strumming down or up, you need to make sure that there is a rhythm there to your hand. The other thing is not to be too firm, not to be too hard on this hand, because what happens is if you're too rigid, you're going to feel the tension. You're going to feel the tension in your arm. So make sure there's a little bit of looseness here in the wrist. And I think somebody explained it best online when they said it's like there's water on your hands. You're just trying to get it off. And you'll notice I'm kind of muting the strings right now. You can mute the strings without playing to really kind of get a good feel of how that pattern is going to go. So let's start off with the first pattern. The first pattern is just a downstroke pattern. It's just a 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's use that as an example. I'm going to use a chord that uses all the notes. Let's just refer back to, let's just say an E chord. Okay, we're just going to do all 4s down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it sounds nice. Always make sure when you're playing the chords you can hear all the notes. So I'm not blocking anything. Remember, if you're blocking anything, the first thing you want to do is go back and find out why it's blocked. So it could be a finger, it could be maybe not pressing down hard enough with the tips of your fingers. So that's all fours. And that's all downstrokes. Now the second pattern here I'm going to show you is going to be down, 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 up. Okay. Again, my hand is going to be consistently moving in this pattern. Down, 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 up, down. Happens real fast. Down, down, down. Down, 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 down. Okay. Now let's do this. We're going to take that E chord and we're going to go from an E to an A. What I want to do is use the first pattern and the second pattern just so you can hear the variation. So the first part with E is 4 downs. Down, down, down. Then to A, down, 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 up, down, 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 down. To A, down, 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 down. And actually, first coming to mind here, there's a song that you can use to play that same strumming pattern and those chords. There's something happened in here, right? What it is ain't exactly clear. An old tune there. So something fun to know. So little details when it comes to playing guitar really increases your playing ability and your technicality in playing guitar, and you're going to sound better. Okay. If it's one thing that's really kind of like important to know when you're watching other people, especially on YouTube, there's two things. One of which is their guitar might be really out of tune, and they may not even be aware of it. So you always want to be aware whether or not you are or not in tune. If you can't hear it, be sure just to tune up frequently. Personally, there's something called Guitar Tuna. I use on my phone a lot of times, and it helps out. Or you can use those tuners you put on the tail end of your neck there. Let's try another pattern here. Let me get a swig of coffee first. So this next pattern here, I call it the Johnny Cash pattern. I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan. And, Johnny Cash is really known for that down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. That is a real signature pattern. Right? I hear the train coming, rolling around the bend. I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. And you can vary it up there as much as you want. But that pattern right there is a real nice kind of chunk, chunk, and chunk, chunk, and chunk. And I'm continually moving my right hand down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. Okay? So it's really important that you keep that pattern fluid. Now let's add all three patterns. We're going to go back and forth between the E, the A, and back to the E. Hey there, good morning. And then we'll do the third strumming pattern. So the first pattern is down, down, down. And the second one is down, 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 up. And then we've got down, down, up, down, down, up. So that's three strumming patterns there. We got 4 downs. We got 4 downs when the last one is a down up, and then you've got your Johnny Cash down, down, up, down, down, up. Okay. Now this other pattern here is really popular, and it can be used for a ton of tunes. We've got down, 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 up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up. And again, continually, kind of being redundant about it, but continually reminding you that your right hand should consistently be moving up and down, right? So no matter what you're playing, let's say you're playing a 3-chord change here, and you want to consistently keep this hand moving. The mistake that a lot of people make is when they're not strumming, the hand stops, okay? You don't want the hand to stop, so you don't want to do this. Okay, you want to continually move that hand. And again, if it hurts, if you're struggling and you're feeling pain in the arm, you definitely want to be relaxed as you're doing it. So this other strumming pattern here, we're going to use the E as the pattern, or the chord. We're just going to go down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, up. This is a nice strumming pattern. Okay. I'm going to show you one more strumming pattern here. Okay. This strumming pattern here is used for a ton of songs. You're going to see a ton of songs that you will learn in the future that we use this strumming pattern. And when you're not sure about it and you hear it, you're going to almost know right away once you do hear it. So this is just a down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. It's extremely, extremely finally awake for this. Well, good morning. Yeah. This pattern here is used for a ton of tunes. Down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up. You know, one of them most notably that I like is Brown Eyed Girl. Check it out. Hey, where do we go? Days when the rains came. Right? Down in a hollow. Playing a new game. So there's a ton of tunes that use that pattern. Down, down, up, down, up. So that was 5 cool strumming patterns that I threw at you guys there. And what I'll end up doing is, and I was talking about this before for those of you just tuning in, you know, I kind of neglected my website for a long time, mostly because I didn't know what to do with it. You know, you get these websites, you start building them, and you have somebody helping you out, and they don't do a great job, and then you're stuck. So, but now I'm starting to understand how to build the site and how to add stuff to it. And one of the tabs is going to be strumming patterns. So everything that I'm talking about today as far as strumming patterns go is going to be in there, and that will help you out in your playing. And when I have a little more time, what I'll do is I'll put examples, just like I kind of went through here. I'll put examples of songs that will help you out. You know, just like that. Something happened here, right? What it is ain't exactly. There's just so many songs that use these simple strumming patterns. There's no need to get complicated with it. So if there's anything to take away from today as far as what you've learned, when you're playing chords, if you're having trouble strumming and making the transition, focus on just the transition of the chords. Get better at that. Then stay focused on keeping close to the fret. The big mistake people make, again, is they're away from the fret, and that creates that buzzing sound. That's why you get that buzzing sound. Okay? So really important to know, strumming takes time to do. Strumming takes time to get good at. And then what happens is once you learn patterns, you get good at these patterns, and then you can start coming up with your own patterns, which is great. So when I'm playing out live, it doesn't mean that I stick to that same exact pattern the whole time. I'm kind of on autopilot. So whatever feels good, I just do it. You know, it just happens. So there's no right or wrong, but obviously, you know, with the song that you're playing, what sounds good and what doesn't, you know. There's a lot of tunes that you could go back, you know, they use this 4-chord pattern: G, E minor, C, and D. You know, that's a simple 4-chord pattern that you can use for a ton of tunes. And again, I got to get around to putting that online as well. Hold on, let me make note of that here. So 4 chords, or 4-chord tunes, I'm going to actually make note of that because I think that's really important. That when I do a live situation sometimes and I get, you know, I play a tune, I'll transition from one song into another, into another, into another. And it makes it fun for the audience because, well, they don't really know what you're doing, but going and making that sort of transition makes it interesting as a player to know that you can actually go from that song into another song. So let me see if I can give you a quick example here we're going to do a G. I'm writing this down real quick because I'm going to add this to my site. G, E minor, C, and D. You know, one of the most infamous chord patterns, great chord patterns. And for those of you out there, kumbaya, right? All right. Got your cup of coffee, got your guitar, got your thinking cap on. Here we go. We're going to go from a G, and we're going to use the strumming pattern: down, down, up, up, down, up, down, down, up, up, down, up. You with me? All right, so here's what we're going to do. All right. Oh, where can my baby be? The Lord took her away from me. She's gone to heaven, so I've got to be good, so I can see my baby when I leave this world. Earth angel, please be mine, my darling dear, right? I love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love with you. So that's two songs with one strumming pattern. Let's add a third song. Here we go. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. Now that was three songs. Now keep in mind that third song. Oh, what's up, Brian? Keep in mind that third song, we use the same chords, we use the same strumming pattern, but the how we held on to the chords just a little bit longer than the other ones. But that's an interesting thing you can do when you're playing live. So you're at a campfire, you're hanging out, you're with your buddies. You will look like a rock star when you can transition multiple songs together like that, and it makes it fun. And the worst thing for a lot of playing out live is dead air time. So when you can continually make people have fun, have a good time, sing along, the worst thing you can do is have a bunch of airtime. But stringing those songs together makes it really interesting. So a lot of times in a live situation, I usually do about three or four songs all together. Any more than that's quite a bit. But that's three songs you could do. So what was it? That was Earth Angel, Stand By Me, and the first one was it was redone by Pearl Jam. Of course, now I can't remember. But anyways, I'll have the names of the songs on there as well on the site. So those of you just tuning in, good morning, good Sunday morning. We went over some strumming patterns. We went over some chord transition. We went over how to, link the chords together like we just did there and create fun patterns for fun songs. A lot of people try to complicate things, and you'll notice about Last Kiss, you're right, Last Kiss. You'll notice that a lot about my channel is I just try to keep it simple. I think people talk too much online. I think people don't get to the point right away, and that's why a lot of the tunes that I have on there, you get the meat and potatoes of it right away. And I think that's really important when you're learning tunes. And I don't know how you guys keep track of the tunes you learn, but obviously you can do it on your computer, keep it on file or whatnot. Sometimes keep maybe a notebook around too, just so that when you are playing, or if you're playing live, you've got all that stuff available. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I got to get going here, but be sure to check out the website soon here, because I will be adding more stuff to it. I will be adding more stuff on the YouTube here, and I do get your requests. I do hear what you want to have as songs that are requested. There are a lot of tunes that basically I can't get to right away, mostly because of my schedule, but I enjoy this. I enjoy the YouTube. It's a lot better than Facebook. Facebook, there seems to be a lot of drama and stuff a lot of times. And but here's the thing: I did start up a Facebook guitar group. So if you guys are interested in stopping by the guitar group, I encourage you to share, your live performances. I encourage you to ask questions, and I encourage you to just have a platform where you can be you. There's no, there's no judging or anything like that. So I will have a link for the Facebook group inside the description box as well. I can't talk right now. Maybe I need more coffee. I'm not sure. Anyway, salute to you guys out there, and we'll see you real soon. Ciao.